right, core part 2, the core series. Now, very simply, I just wanted to now take a moment to talk about, so why do we, when it comes to how we operate with the People's Gym and what we want to train in people and why we believe strength and flexibility equals resilience, is I'm going to try and demonstrate that in a very simplistic model here. So if you haven't watched part 1, go back and watch part 1 now. It'll be in the IGTV. So what we talked about in part 1 was basically where the muscles are. So we talked about our core. It more or less is going to sit on the front here. Oh, my pen's not working. Or it's going to sit on the back, right? All the way up the back there, or the front there. We got some across the diaphragm, across the middle. We got our pelvic floor somewhere in there. We got our obliques, yada, yada, yada. But there you go. So it kind of sits there, right? So what that's going to allow us to do is a combination here, right? So when we talk about muscles, they only ever pull. Muscles don't push. So muscles come together by cross-bridging, okay? So they come together by doing this, all right? So when we talk about muscles in the core, all we're really doing is we're wanting to build strength that our muscles learn to pull and they can resist tension, all right? So I've got a guy here standing up, all right? Now, if you're just standing, kind of the demand on your core or your postural strength there is really just to stop you from kind of falling, Like you've seen those out the side of car sales yards, they've got the big floppy man all over the place, right? Like if you had no core stability, that would be you. The wind would blow and you would be all over the place, right? So our core in that sense is going to help us to just have that postural stability, is to be nice and upright, which is why you see a lot of physiotherapists and things like that, when you go and see them and you're having back issues or certain issues, they're going to help work on things like your core. Now it might be different elements, it might be your glutes, it might be a whole bunch of different stuff, but more or less it's going to be core is going to play a part in that, okay, because it plays a big part in our posture, right? Where this comes into play in terms of your strength and your resilience and your longevity is a number of examples, limitless examples. But for one, we're going to just talk about bending over, right? A lot of people will do their back or hurt their back by just bending over to do something, an everyday task like picking up their groceries or tying their shoe or picking up their kid or something like that, all right? So now this guy over here, he's bending down and he's got an arm. We'll give him an arm. He's picking up a grocery bag on the floor. Lovely. Okay, so now what's happening is we've got kind of two things happening, right? If he's just going front to back, we've got muscles on this side, on the bottom. Let me get another pen. We've got muscles on this side, okay? Purple muscles now, all right? Those muscles are gonna have to contract and go down. So I need to be strong enough that I can contract and control that contraction on the front. On the back, right, I've also got muscles that run all the way up here that are now going to be lengthening, and more or less in this scenario, these muscles on my back are going to have to be stronger to be able to control that, right? Now you don't have to, you hear often, don't round your lower back, don't round your lower back, yes, in certain scenarios it's not good to round your lower back and whatever, but like at the end of the day, your spine and your joints and the muscles around them work like any other muscle. They get stronger when there's a certain demand that is placed upon them, then they get stronger, okay? So we're going to do that progressively when we train. We're not just going to go and bend our back willy-nilly. But more or less, you've got these muscles that need to be strong, okay? Same goes for the glutes. We've got muscles that need to be strong there. They're going to allow us to stand up. So you can kind of get a picture now of why your core is important, because so much of our movement comes from this trunk area, right? If we want to rotate, that kind of movement is going to come from the ability for us to contract, right? If we don't want to rotate, well, it comes from the ability of our muscles to resist that movement, okay? Same thing here. What's happening here is not the fact that these muscles are resisting the forces that are causing us to, fall and gravity and things like that. So these core muscles, they don't just exist to kind of like maintain this rigid balance. No, they're constantly working to adjust and correct where we are in space, okay? So when we talk about core muscles, it's not just this arbitrary thing that we do by doing tons and tons of dead bugs or hollow holds or, bird dogs. Like those things are all good, but we also need to look at the bigger picture of why we're strengthening them and how we're strengthening them progressively. Okay, things like Jefferson curls, right? We want to purposely roll and load the spine in a flexed and bent position because we want to strengthen in that range. Okay, if you're doing a 1RM deadlift, well, we don't really want to see a whole lot of change in flexion throughout that motion. We might see a little bit, but more or less we don't want to see it changing. So that's kind of like when we talk about core, I wanted to just put some legs on it because it is a very kind of like the way people often talk about it. It's this thing that just exists and it's just doing planks. And it's doing these kind of arbitrary exercises that we just hear about. But at the end of the day, the core exists of real muscles that can be trained in very diverse and dynamic ways. Okay, so having a higher understanding that the core is not just a random group or set of muscles, they actually have purpose and function, and they have different movements that they will initiate. And a lot of it has to do around the spine, protecting the spine, which is why I said I may have said in the first video, is that we have a dedicated sort of spine day, right? Where we work on our breathing, our bracing, we work on our, our flexion, we work on our lower back, we work on our erectors, we work on our upper back and what's going on there with our posture, we work on our abdominals, we work on all this kind of stuff, because for the most part, it's my spine that's going to be moving as I do these things. And so I want to make sure that my spine is also strong and protected and healthy by making sure that my muscles and my joints move well and are resistant when it comes to any sort of force being placed upon them. So that's Core Series Part 2. I don't know if there's going to be a third, but I hope you have enjoyed that. If you have any questions or comments, put it below. If you want to, we really appreciate your support. Feel free to share this on your story or give us a follow if you haven't already. But otherwise, have a great day.